Alright, this is the Hollywood movie incentive and Dragon Ball movie experiment done by Sankofa Double Zero. And you might be wondering why I'm doing this, why this is take 5. Well, I had some weird scratchy noises and the other ones, and I just didn't think it was up to par to the quality I'm used to. Okay, so on why Hollywood needs a reason to go into these basically taking from the past and applying to the future, which is pretty much my whole philosophy. Why I call it Sankofa. Anyway, the thing is about these movies is that they make great franchises. When you have movies like Spider-Man, Iron Man, the Batman, well, most notably the Dark Knight, X-Men, you almost have the stories written out for you. I mean, you have guys who basically, and also because comic books have been developed over so many years. I mean, you have uh, various adaptations. You have this like years of work already done for you. You have characterized heroes and villains. You already have a set universe. Everything is pretty much written out for you. As a director, the only thing you need to do is one, produce it, meaning make sure everybody knows this movie is coming out, which wouldn't be that difficult since you already have a fan base and they'll pretty much do the advertising for you. Secondly, you need the actors. Now, this might be a little bit difficult, but for comic books, it could be pretty easy. I mean, they were made intentionally for an American audience, and of course, I mean, you wouldn't have like an Indian Superman or something. So, I'm guessing the casting would be that difficult, and the fact you can pretty much find these actors like almost begging to be in a superhero movie, simply because they're bound to make money and it puts their faces out there. Um, and of course, you always have the opportunity to make sequels. Sequels, they're good for almost everybody. They're good for the director. They're good for the actors. They're good for commercialism. They're pretty much and they're good for the fan base. Almost everybody wins in that situation. It really is a win-win situation. And the thing is that when you have like movies like The Dark Knight, probably the most successful comic book adaptations, you can really see why many of these studios aren't really looking for originality these days. I mean, with originality, you always have a risk. You have a risk that people won't be able to appreciate the work, or the work might just be a piece of crap. You don't know. Anyway, even if the idea is good, it'd be more difficult to create a sequel out of it. Now, this also, of course, you also have to think of, well, if there's no originality, Hollywood might as well be dead. And I kind of agree with you with that. I mean, Hollywood's function is moving from the movie industry of the world to basically just like a video converter, pretty much converting comic books to big screen. That's what Hollywood will become if there's no originality. But of course, people aren't really thinking about that. They're thinking of the great money opportunities for it. And I can't really blame them for right now. I mean, that's just the economics behind it. Anyway, for the Dragon Ball movie, pretty much the same incentive. You have a pretty enormous fan base that's been kept alive by video games for the past what in America? Well, just in America for 8 years. Well, I don't know, maybe I don't know exactly when the series ended. Might be around 2003, but you have a rabid fan base, and that's a double-edged coin. Simply because you have a fan base that loves Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT. They're pretty much all children. They can pretty much remember coming home from school and watching, Goku beat the crap out of Frieza, or blow somebody's head off, or tear somebody's arms off or something. It was like one of the greatest series around. It pretty much defined anime in America. When people think of anime, they think of Dragon Ball Z, and the fact that so many animes after that is pretty much done on some sort of homage to Dragon Ball Z is pretty much proof of that. Anyway, movie adaptation. Now, I don't think they realized what risk they were taking when they took this on. Now, they must have realized that there was a fan base out there, but they didn't realize who the fan base was and how greatly they took to heart this anime. I mean, this is their childhood. This is what they knew to be true since they were little kids. And when I see movies, and they've also been brought up in a world where Hollywood has pretty much messed up so many different franchises, from video games, from um, I guess from older cartoons. It's almost a maximum video games. If it's adapted from a video game to a movie, it's almost always going to suck. And that and that and now I've heard like Silent Hill was a pretty faithful adaptation, but like I said before, um, it's by the time the movie came out, people weren't really interested in video game movies, or didn't really believe it was going to be a good movie, simply because it's almost done just to make money, and there isn't that much creativity, or they'll try to turn it into something else and just slap the name on it. They don't. People don't want that to happen to Dragon Ball. People don't. People want to be able to go to the movies and recognize this piece of art as Dragon Ball. They don't want it to be turned into some no-name martial arts movie, or some lame excuse for a guy to make a martial arts movie. Now, I can definitely see why they chose the actors they did. I can. I mean, this is technically the first part of a series, which is the most difficult to get off the ground. They, like for instance, Justin Chatwin. I can imagine why. I mean, they pretty much like signed a deal with him, basically that, if this does become a franchise, then Justin Chan will become the new face of Goku. However, unsettling that may be, that's a very good thing for him. It gets his name out there. It promotes him. Of course, if this movie is pretty bad, then he'll pretty much be the face of the death of Goku, the death of the entire series. Anyway, he might just end up turning the entire fan base away from the series forever, and then at least a whole bunch of money. But oh well, that's the risk you take in business. Anyway, for the other characters, I bet you haven't heard many of them. If this movie is successful, and I really hope it does, really hope it is, then these people's names will get out there. They'll have a better chance. If the directors who make this movie do a good job, which I really hope they do, then also their names get out there too. I would have liked a bit more like a faithful adaptation, but I can understand what they're trying to get at. I mean, they understand the fan base is pretty much ranges from like the adults to little kids, so they guys are trying to appeal with everybody at the same time. So they had to make several revisions. Um, all the superficial things like appearances, like race or hair color, um, is pretty secondary. They made some liberties with the other franchises. I mean, maybe not as much, but they still made some liberties with them, and people didn't really seem to care as much, so long as the actors retained true to their characters. The two things I had a big problem with, well, three things: high school, no Krillin, and the fighting style. Goku going to high school changes his character almost immensely, unless they revise this somehow or change it, but I don't see how you can. He's supposed to be a lovable idiot. A guy, pretty much an idiot in pretty much anything he does. A complete moron in almost anything except when it comes to fighting. Krillin was his right-hand man. I mean, the guy wasn't the best fighter, but he is one of the most recognizable faces of Dragon Ball Z. The fact that or Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. The fact that he's not in there, it gives credence to the fears of many of the fanboys that this isn't going to be Dragon Ball. And then of course you have the fighting style. Fighting style of Dragon Ball, and well, I don't know much about Dragon Ball, but Dragon Ball Z in general is that it's hard and fast. You have a lot of hard hits in these genres. In this series. The fact that Goku, he dodges, but he doesn't need to dodge from like the weaker characters. Many of the times, just to show how cool and how strong and how much of a badass he is, he just stands there, take whatever hits come to him, and then blow the guy, and then just breaks every bone in this guy's body by like breaking his finger or something. That's Dragon Ball. That's what we want to see. And if you don't do it like that, or if you don't change it as much, people aren't going to recognize this as a separate movie. They'll just write it off as another martial arts flick. Well, I think I'm getting to my limit. I don't think I can name anything else I can think of about it. Just expect more movies to do this. This makes too much money. Honestly, this is what Hollywood is going to become. An anime, comic book and book converter.